The Galactic Council had never issued an ultimatum that wasn't obeyed. Until Earth replied with, "We'll get back to you after coffee," and then didn't. The Galactic Council had issued 743 ultimatums in recorded history. Every species had complied by the second demand. Except Earth. Earth responded with a 6-word message. "We'll get back to you." Coffee. No signature. No explanation. Not even a timestamp. High Chancellor Drex of the Zoravian Accord nearly choked on his own mucus gland. "They what? Coffee?" he sputtered, spraying his translator drone with acidic spit. The drone short-circuited, twitching midair before crashing into the council floor. "They mock us," hissed Varkel, supreme strategist of the Tharn Dominion, a race famous for erasing civilizations for less. "Or worse," muttered Elder Syll of the Aviation Mindweb, her tendrils twitching uneasily. "They don't care." The chamber swirled with diplomatic static, languages bleeding over each other. There was a growing, uncomfortable realization among the gathered delegates: humanity didn't fear them. At all. On Earth, in a dusty outpost beneath the Colorado Rockies, Commander Elias Monroe stared at a slowly dripping coffee machine as if it were delivering nuclear codes. He wore a gray sweater over his regulation uniform, sleeves rolled, collar popped. His brown hair was just shy of needing a cut. He looked like a librarian who'd forgotten to return his own books. But beneath that unbothered exterior hid the mind of the man who had once tricked a hostile AI fleet into attacking its own fuel lines using nothing but a weather satellite and a falsified cricket broadcast. The room buzzed. Not with panic, but with the faint hum of an old jazz record playing in the background. Screens flickered overhead, displaying the orbital positioning of the incoming galactic fleet. 600 ships. 5 planetary-class dreadnoughts. 17 species represented. All armed. All annoyed. "Sir," said Captain Rivera, stepping into the war room with the urgency of someone trying not to disturb a sleeping tiger. "They've crossed Saturn's orbit." Elias stirred his coffee. What blend is this?" "Eclipse roast, sir." "Makes sense. Tastes like doom and raisins." He took another sip, thoughtful. "Any response to our message?" Rivera hesitated. "They are extremely offended." Elias grinned, showing too many teeth for it to be friendly. "Good. That means they read it." Meanwhile, in orbit around Neptune, the galactic fleet assembled. The Tharn vessels kept a deliberate distance from the sleek aviation cruisers, while the bureaucratic Groltech ships drifted with the grace of flying filing cabinets. In the central command vessel, High Admiral Rekthar of the Valerii stood before the full council transmission. "We commence approach," he barked, mandibles clicking. "Should Earth resist, we will neutralize and sterilize. Their species is statistically insignificant," said Counselor Meruin, representing the probabilistic AI known only as the Oracle. "Their resistance is mathematically implausible." "Still," murmured Syll, her translucent skin pulsing softly, "they did not run. Or beg. That alone is new." Elias watched the projection of the fleet blinking its way closer to Earth. He adjusted his cuffs and turned to Rivera. "How many of our satellites did they probe?" 32, sir. They disabled 10. Or tried to. "And how did that go for them?" Rivera smirked. "One of their scout ships exploded after touching Relay 42. Debris still falling past Jupiter. The decoy minefield wrapped in a weather array. Classic." Elias turned back to his desk and picked up a remote. He clicked it once. Across the world, deep systems awoke. Buried antennas turned. Codes decades dormant whispered across invisible channels. He turned to the room, now full of tense officers awaiting orders. "Let them land," he said calmly. "Sir?" asked Rivera, blinking. "Let them land. Give them the softest targets. The abandoned bases, the deactivated defense grids. Let them feel clever. Overconfident. Maybe even smug." A pause. Then Rivera nodded, slowly catching the scent of the trap. And when they think we've got nothing left? Elias took another long sip of coffee, eyes on the growing red dots crossing Mars' orbit. Then, he said softly, we show them the sky isn't the only thing that can open. In the Galactic Command Channel, debates simmered. Why no planetary shields? Hissed Varkel. Even the Arcturans deployed magnetic barriers. They have nothing, boomed Admiral Rekthar. It will be a harvest. You mistake silence for weakness, said Sylull again. She floated above her console, her ancient eyes clouded with visions. Or perhaps they are listening. Perhaps they never stopped. On Earth, inside a bunker labeled Utility Maintenance Station 17C, a young technician watched as encrypted command lines scrolled down his screen. He frowned. Commander Monroe just reactivated Project Glassjaw. His supervisor paled. That's supposed to be fictional. Apparently not. Elias leaned back, watching the sunlight creep through the reinforced glass. The earth outside was as calm as a Sunday. No panic. No mass evacuations. No desperation. Just patience. They don't understand us, do they? Rivera said, almost to herself. Elias looked at her. No. And that's the most human thing we've ever done. He raised his coffee mug, as the galactic fleet crossed the moon's shadow. To coffee, he said with a smile. And bad decisions. They came in formation, a disciplined wall of starships, cutting through the void like a guillotine aimed at a neck that refused to bow. Earth spun beneath them, blue, quiet, uncaring. From orbit, it looked vulnerable. No shields. No weapon signatures. Just clouds, cities, oceans. No panic signals, no military broadcasts, no pleading. Nothing. That was the first mistake, mistaking silence for absence. High Admiral Rekthar watched the planet rotate lazily below. Begin low-orbit intimidation passes. I want their attention. The command echoed across species. Massive engines growled to life, and shadow fell over the Pacific Rim. Civilian satellites blinked out. Entire communication bands went silent. Still, Earth gave no response. Until a ping arrived. Just one. Incoming transmission, origin, Earth, designation, diplomatic response. It came with a simple audio file. A man's voice, amused, calm, and infuriatingly relaxed. Dear guests. Welcome. Please state dietary preferences before landing. Tea and dental records will be prepared. There was a long pause on the bridge of the Council flagship. Dental records? Rekthar muttered. Is this a joke? Hissed Varkel. Elder Sylull tilted her head. They're offering tea. In Geneva, Elias Monroe stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting his tie like he had all the time in the world. Behind him, the bunker buzzed with activity. Technicians murmured in coded shorthand. Dry humor flowed like coffee. Sir, envoy crafts are approaching. Elias didn't look up. Send landing instructions. Set the welcome chamber temperature to 72 Fahrenheit. Comfortable, but not cozy. Should we prep weapons? He turned finally. No. Prep the hors d'oeuvres. 5 ships detached from the main fleet and descended. Each carried a diplomat from a different species, ranging from the methane-breathing Tharn to the crystalline Avetian. They expected tension. Defiance. Resistance. They found finger sandwiches. The landing bay wasn't a military complex. It was, to their confusion, something resembling a corporate conference room, potted plants, framed photos of mountain ranges, and an absurdly large glass table with fresh pastries and 6 steaming teapots. Elias stood at the far end, holding a clipboard and smiling like someone about to ruin your entire week with perfect customer service. Ambassadors, he said cheerfully, thank you for your prompt arrival. Please sit. Or hover. Or absorb the chair, whatever suits your physiology. They stood stiffly, scanning for traps. You mock protocol, spat the Tharn delegate. I mock everything equally. It's inclusive, Elias replied, pouring tea. Sugar? The Avetian envoy, A being of soft glow and clicking light pulses finally stepped forward. You are the leader? I lead selectively. Mostly coffee breaks. Occasionally military engagements. Rekthar's hologram flared into the center of the room, massive and towering. You have ignored direct orders from the council, he growled. Elias looked up at the projection, blinking. Yes. That was deliberate. You understand the consequences? Absolutely. He sipped. That's why we dusted off the good china. The Tharn slammed a claw into the table. It didn't budge. Reinforced titanium. They noticed. You will surrender planetary authority, he demanded. Elias tilted his head, considering. No. You cannot win. I agree. They paused. Caught off guard. Elias leaned forward, voice low but steady. Winning was never the objective. Watching you trip over your own certainty? Now that's a bonus. Up above, orbital scanners began to twitch. Unmanned drones launched from Earth's poles. Quiet. Old models. Except they weren't in any known registry. Not even Earth's. The Groltech ships flagged them as weather instruments. Until one of them blinked. And vanished. In the Geneva chamber, an alien aide stormed in, whispering frantically into the Tharn envoy's translator node. Varkel's eyes narrowed. One of our scouts has gone dark. Elias blinked. Oh dear. That's terribly impolite of us. What have you done? He held up a napkin. Spilled some tea. Could you be more specific? The aviation envoy's lights flickered rapidly. Why do you pretend weakness? Elias' expression shifted just slightly. Not a smile, not a frown. A calibration. Pretending? No. We are weak. Small planet, chaotic politics, too many streaming platforms to pick from. But here's the fun part. Weak things survive by being underestimated. His voice dipped. Sometimes we let predators get close. So close, they never see the teeth until it's already too late. In orbit, the fleet began to reconfigure. Tactical overlays blinked red. Something wasn't right. The aviation officer, back aboard her ship, watched Earth's stratosphere shift subtly. I don't understand, she whispered. Their tech is outdated. Scattershot. Why does it feel designed? Because it was. Elias didn't build Earth's defenses like a wall. He built them like a story. A carefully staged performance. Let them see what they expect. Let them feel clever. Then close the book. In Geneva, the air chilled a fraction. The Tharn diplomat's claws tapped nervously. We demand immediate planetary compliance. Elias stood slowly, straightened his sleeves, and looked each alien in the eye. When he spoke, the warmth left his tone. You came to a world with no planetary shield. No unified government. No galactic standing. You saw our surface and called it soft. You saw our silence and called it fear. He stepped around the table. Closer. No threats. No weapons. But you missed the question you should have asked. The room stilled. What kind of species makes themselves look weak, and still dares you to come anyway? No one spoke. Elias leaned in. We didn't ignore your ultimatum because we were afraid. We ignored it because we were busy. Busy doing what? The Tharn delegate asked, barely audible. A screen blinked on behind Elias. A view of orbit. Dozens of Earth's satellites shifted into formation. The sky began to hum. Elias smiled again. Setting the table. Above Earth, the stars blinked, then rearranged. The first to notice was an aviation tactician aboard Cradle of Silence, one of their faster observation cruisers. Commander, Earth's satellites are repositioning. Define repositioning. They're forming a pattern. Is it defensive? A pause. No. It's geometric. On Earth, Commander Elias Monroe watched the live feed from orbit. His expression, as usual, was unreadable. They're confused, Captain Rivera said, leaning beside him. It's spreading. They should be. Geometry's terrifying when you're not the one holding the compass. He clicked a button. A hum rippled through deep Earth relays. In the upper ionosphere, decades-old weather satellites suddenly came alive. Not new ones. Not flashy. Old, long-abandoned husks. At least that's what everyone thought. But these weren't for weather. They had never been. High Admiral Rekthar stood at the edge of his war table aboard the Judgment Fong, scowling. They're powering energy signatures across the polar orbits. A last-minute bluff, Varkel insisted. Outdated technology. Nothing scalable. Elder Sylel didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed on the view outside. On Earth. On the quietness that was no longer quiet. What if it's not meant to scale? She said softly. What if it's meant to collapse? Above the Pacific, the clouds parted. No wind, no storm, just clean, deliberate separation. The kind of split that didn't come from weather, but from code. One of the Council's sensor ships zoomed in. That's when they saw it. The sky opened. Not a metaphor. Not a battlecruiser. A literal gash across the atmosphere, sharp as a scalpel, nearly invisible until the sunlight hit it. Then came the sound, a deep, bone-vibrating tone, like whale's song mixed with tectonic grief. A Tharn scout ship moved to investigate. It vanished. Not destroyed. Not hit. Just gone. Mid-transmission. Cut from reality. On board Judgment Fong, panic spread. That was the Void Lance. One of our fastest interceptors. Gone? Rekthar growled. What do you mean, gone? The answer came from Earth's main transmission tower. It was Elias. He wasn't smiling anymore. You touched something that wasn't meant to be found. Please don't do that again. In Geneva, the alien envoys turned as one toward Elias, eyes wide, claws tight, tendrils frozen. The Tharn envoy hissed. What is that weapon? Elias looked thoughtful. Weapon's not the right word. It's more like a firewall. For planets. You've breached interstellar law. He shrugged. We've broken every other kind of law. Why stop there? The aviation envoy whispered. What powers it? Elias' voice dropped. Fear. But not ours. In orbit, the rest of the Council fleet began shifting into attack posture. Orders screamed across comms, weapons charged. The plan was simple, a precise, full-spectrum orbital bombardment targeting Earth's suspected defense nodes. They launched. Dozens of blasts fired toward Earth. They never landed. Each energy pulse curved midair, as if the planet itself had changed the rules of physics. Some vanished. Others bounced off invisible structures miles above the atmosphere. One shot came dangerously close to a human city. A second before impact, a tower previously believed to be an old TV antenna rotated 90 degrees and emitted a soundless wave. The blast dissolved midair. Back in the Geneva command room, Rivera watched the chaos unfold on the monitors. Are they seeing it? Elias nodded. They're starting to. Should we push the signal now? He checked the timer on the screen. Give it another 4 minutes. Let them stew. On board the aviation ship Whisper Array, technicians began screaming. The energy grid, it's infiltrated. Infiltrated? From Earth? No, from within our fleet. They're using our own relays. Back on Earth, Elias tapped a small device on his wrist. A tiny green light blinked. That's our cue. Across the sky, every single human satellite transmitted one phrase, broadcast simultaneously in over 300 alien dialects, plus Latin for flair. Thank you for your contribution. Access granted? Earth hadn't built a defense. It had built a trap. For decades, Earth let itself be watched. Catalogued. Judged. Labeled primitive. Everything the galaxy saw was allowed to be seen. The tech. The chatter. The chaos. Carefully curated incompetence. In reality, Earth's true systems had been built inside the very networks aliens used to monitor them. Watching the Watchers. Tracking every protocol, every frequency, every command structure. They didn't need to hack the fleet. They were already inside. Alien cruisers began spinning out of formation. Targeting arrays glitched. Artificial gravity fluctuated. AI pilots screamed in broken code. The Council's fleet was no longer a fleet. It was a puzzle made of explosives. And Elias had just started moving the pieces. Rekthar screamed at his control crew. "Shut down external links! Sever Earth's access!" One of his officers turned face pale. "They're not in the system. They are the system. They rewrote our own architecture, years ago." In Geneva, Elias watched the sky spark like a dying firework display. "Remind me," he said casually. "Who were we before this?" Rivera didn't answer. "Right," Elias said softly. "The animals. The late arrivals. The forgotten dust ball with memes and microwave dinners." He looked up at the camera. "Funny what patience buys you." Ships began falling from orbit, not crashing, but folding, imploding, as their core systems failed mid-calculation. Some species began broadcasting surrender. Others tried to escape. Few would. Elias turned to the envoys in the room. Not smug. Just final. "You came to Earth with war in your throat," he said. "We put something heavier in your lungs." Above them, a final message transmitted to the fleet from Earth's Central Command. "We didn't want peace because we feared war. We wanted silence because we were preparing the storm." And then silence. Except for the sky, which was still open. And hungry. The Galactic Council fleet had no protocols for being dismantled mid-sentence. Dozens of ships, once pristine and menacing, now flickered like ghosts, systems hijacked, gravity wells inverted, targeting optics blind. Weapons designed to eradicate worlds refused to fire, instead blinking confused diagnostics in alien script. From orbit, Earth no longer looked small. It looked sentient. Inside the command center in Geneva, Elias Monroe stood in the same spot he always had, beside the untouched tea tray, hands behind his back, gaze calmly locked on the panoramic display. A red bloom flared across the screen as one of the Tharn dreadnoughts imploded silently in high orbit, folding in on itself like wet paper under pressure. The rest of the Council's fleet scattered, no longer in formation. They weren't executing tactics. They were trying to survive. Captain Rivera watched the feed in awe. "They're running." "Of course they are," Elias said softly. "They finally realized the trap wasn't in the satellites." Rivera turned. "Then where?" He pointed upward. "Themselves." In the sky, the second stage of Earth's counteroperation began. The command satellites, previously thought to be long-dead weather junk, fired synchronized pulses into the ionosphere. Their frequency wasn't destructive. It was linguistic. A command language. One the galactic ships had unknowingly adopted over years of monitoring Earth's primitive networks. Like a virus hidden in a lullaby. One by one, alien vessels obeyed. Engines cut. Life support systems rerouted. Targeting logs wiped. Some ships simply powered down, others turned toward their own command carriers, locking coordinates. The fleet had not been defeated. It had been rewritten. Inside the Council flagship Judgment Fong, High Admiral Rekthar roared orders that no longer mattered. "Retreat! All units, scatter into deep space!" No response. His commands bounced back at him, mirrored. Useless. He spun toward his AI pilot. "Override!" The pilot didn't move. The console blinked calmly. "Override acknowledged. Mission failure. Authority rerouted to Earth Directive 1. Rekthar staggered. "Earth has command codes?" he whispered. No one answered. Back in Geneva, the remaining alien envoys stood frozen. The Tharn delegate's breath came in short, shallow gasps, chest heaving. "You've just crippled 70% of our Council fleet." "No," Elias corrected politely. "You did that. We just helped you pull the trigger." He walked slowly toward the table, boots echoing in the silence. "You saw a species with no unified flag. No quantum drives. You saw our noise, our contradictions, our obsessions with entertainment and irony, and thought, surely they are simple. He stopped, leaned forward. You never asked how we survived before you found us. On the aviation ship Whisper Array, a backup AI activated emergency data locks. It failed. Earth's subroutines were already inside, studying, adapting, learning what should not be known. Moments later, the ship's data core broadcast its entire archive directly to Earth's lunar vault. Every council protocol, species registry, encryption schema, all copied. No resistance. No trace. Earth didn't just win the fight. They harvested the future. Why didn't you warn us? The aviation envoy whispered. We would have listened. Elias gave a tight, tired smile. We did warn you. We said nothing. You just didn't listen to that either. In low orbit, one final dreadnought attempted a suicide run. Reactor cores overheating, systems locked out, its captain overrode the failsafes manually, fingers melting on the control surface. It roared toward Earth like a martyr's blade. The sky answered. 3 small cubes, previously invisible to even quantum scans, detached from the upper atmosphere and intercepted the dreadnought at impossible speed. They didn't fire. They absorbed. One moment mass. The next void. The dreadnought was gone. Not debris. Not ash. Nothing. Rivera swallowed. What were those? Elias exhaled. Classified. Even to us? Especially to us. The Geneva monitors dimmed, shifting from tactical views to a single line of white text on a black background. Galactic command infrastructure, secure. Transfer complete. Rivera stared. We control the entire fleet. Correction, Elias said. We own the entire fleet. On board the surviving alien ships, panic gave way to disbelief. Humans began broadcasting a new message, short, clinical, in a dozen galactic dialects. Cease hostilities. Your vessels are now under peaceful Earth custody. We recommend immediate withdrawal. This is not a surrender. This is a rescue. Back in the Geneva chamber, the Tharn envoy lunged forward, claws bared. This is conquest. This is domination. Elias stepped aside calmly, letting the creature stumble past. Rivera raised a hand. A thin beam of light struck the Tharn's exospine, paralyzing, not lethal. The envoy collapsed in a heap, twitching. Elias sighed. So dramatic. The aviation delegate blinked slowly. You've become what we feared. No, Elias said. We've become what you built us to be. Outside, the sun rose. And Earth remained untouched. Unconquered. Unbowed. But not what it had been. Not to the galaxy. To them, Earth was now a myth wearing a grin. Elias stepped out onto the surface, looking up at the sky. Rivera followed, quiet. You think they'll come back? They will, he said. And then? He sipped coffee from a battered steel mug. Then we'll teach them again. In the silence, the clouds shifted. Above them, deep in the stratosphere, the hidden mechanisms of Earth's greatest lie folded back into sleep. For now.